if we're going to talk about liberty, the most disenfranchised people need the biggest voice.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about the most marginalized people.
Right.
And we together need to make sure that they are not forgotten.
Yep.
And that they are not invisible, and that we take their needs as seriously as anybody else's. And, you know, from a standpoint of personal freedom, absolutely. Bodily autonomy right now is such a huge thing, whether it's vaccines, or whether it's abortion, or whether it's hormone treatment or surgery, or whatever it is. Human beings need to be able to consult with their medical professionals and make their own decisions without the interference of government. Government should never tell you where you can get healthcare, or how you can access healthcare, or what healthcare you can access. That's a decision between you and your medical provider.
Well, the government is even going a step further and rescinding healthcare
licensing,
within licensing, but also Medicaid coverage.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're older or if you're poor, forget you. Yeah,
and it's absolutely horrible. And you know, I think that's why there's a lot of queer libertarians in general, because the libertarian or the queer community knows as well as anybody how much the government has oppressed them over the years and tried to hurt them.
Right.
I mean, the Stonewall riots were a riot against police brutality and police trying to shut down a gay bar.
Yeah.
And it was them fighting back against politicians, fighting back against government, fighting back against the system. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Pride was a riot, and that is very... You know, to me, libertarian is anti-authoritarian.
Yeah.
You know, it's anti-authority, it's anti...
The culture used to be more like that, too.
And that's the culture that I believe in.
Queer culture, I mean, the reason why people reclaim that word is because it's contrarian.
Yes.
You know? But now it's interesting, like, I don't know if you want to get into this, and because it tends to be kind of simplistic, but I noticed that the queer community is moving away from being more libertarian and, you know, punk rock, like fuck you, whatever, you know, to more like conformity, to telling other people what to do, even within their own community, towards more ideas around socialism. Not, you know, I'm not afraid of socialism. I just think that some of the ideas aren't so great.
Yeah.
You know, cooperative working, you know, as long as it's voluntary, etc.
Exactly.
I'm totally for that. You know, if you want to start a business and you want it to be cooperative, wonderful. Do it. Put all your capital into it. But when you want more government to fix problems, that doesn't seem like the right way to go.
I agree. I think that government has caused more problems for the queer community than anything else in history. It's government that has oppressed us historically. It's government that's been weaponized against us. It's government that's oppressed us and taken away our rights. And it's government...
And it's fickle, too. Like, some of them are like, oh, I'm going to sign this executive order, which is really weak.
Exactly.
And then the next one is of course, going to be like, nope, can take that right back.
Exactly. And what we've learned from the Supreme Court, and I've kind of been saying this for years, you know, while anti-discrimination laws can be good, they can just as easily be taken away when somebody else is in power. That's the problem.
That's right.
And then when you do it that way, now all the people who felt forced to follow these laws, now they have a grudge against you too. You're creating more of a hostile environment. The way we really win acceptance and win tolerance is just by being us and being part of the community, and being kind to people and teaching them rather than yelling at them, trying to educate them, trying to be kind, you know, and sometimes that's really hard. I know for me that's kind of always been my go-to, and why I really did so well in Liberty circles, and kind of gained a following, was because I knew how to be kind and talk to people who, you know, if somebody said something online that was ignorant, I would try to educate rather than yell at, right? Rather than, so it was, okay, ignorance.
I don't mind yelling at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, when I came out, I was in ACT UP. you know, and some people think that's really obnoxious, you know, and certainly they did some obnoxious work, but also they were dealing with an emergency.
Yeah.
That AIDS was not being taken seriously and
Exactly.
people were dying.
Exactly.
So you could be the kind person. Other people can be the more obnoxious, in-your-face, direct action kind of people. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you could do things.
But, you know, from my standpoint, I look at it from, you know, if somebody says something on the line, is it ignorance or are they purposely trying to be jerks?
Sure.
If they're purposefully trying to be jerks, then they're not worth my time anyway.
Sure.
And if they say something really bad, then maybe I might react to it. But if it's out of ignorance, if we can help an ignorant person understand and help them, the problem is that a lot of the ignorance is dehumanizing, right? The best way to attack a community or a group of people who are different is to dehumanize them, to make them appear less than.
It's called an ideology.
Exactly, to make them not human beings anymore.
Yeah.
So the best way we counter that is by sharing our own humanity with others, sharing our own experiences, helping them realize that we're just people too who want to live our lives and be who we are and find happiness, and we're not trying to take anything from them. We're just trying to find our own way in the world.
I made a joke yesterday, and this is going to sound really dorky, but you know, online people keep saying as some sort of put down that, oh, look, pronouns in bio.
Yep.
Right.
See that all the
So
time.
people put pronouns because they want to be clear about their personal identity, because they want to be to show that they're safe to be around for other people, and because, you know, it's not that big of a deal of a thing to do. It respects different kinds of identities. So doing that is just it's a one of those code things that shows that you're a bigot when you say that. But my little joke is that Austrian economics in the bio.
Yeah. Well, you know, Austrian economics. We all know the famous Austrian who wasn't very nice to people.
Sure. But it seems like a lot of these guys who are like, they try to sound intellectual, like they've read some books or something like that, and then they're bigots, you know, on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Mises Caucus made it clear, and they're kind of the main Austrian economic school out there, that they envision a Hoppian future, and a Hoppian party, and a Hoppian government.
And explain who that is.
So Hoppe is a philosopher who's, I don't know how he's considered libertarian, but he's really authoritarian, who believes that discrimination is okay, that that religious values are really more important in moral society, and he really he's really a separatist and a segregationist.
I hear him quoted a lot, though. By libertarians.
He's a really disgusting person.
Yeah. And of course, they also support Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Who worked with like blatant racists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's Rothbard, who's another one, and Rothbard's philosophy was really that, again, the separationist movement. This everybody should have the right to discriminate because that's who they are. You know, if they want to discriminate against people, they can. Everybody should be able to do what they want, kind of thing. You know, and to me, your rights end when you start hurting other people.
Right.
So you have the right to do whatever you want, but if you're trying to hurt other people intentionally, then you don't have the right to do that. You don't have the right to cause harm intentionally to others.
It's also not pro-social.
No.
And by social, I don't mean socialism. Don't get all triggered or whatever. I mean, like, just living in community and being a decent person.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And so these people have this idea of liberty or freedom, and it's more of they hear the word personal freedom and they think liberty for me, but not anybody else.
Right.
As long as I get what I want, I don't care about the rights of anybody else. As long as
it feels really immature.
it is.
Yeah.
It is very immature. It's very childish. It's a lot of people who have had poor social interaction with people in their own communities and in their own world, and it's people that really feel that they're owed something just because they exist, and
they've even tweeted that sort of thing.
Yeah, like
that black people owe white people something.
Yeah, they feel like they're owed, that they should be thanked for existing, and that like like, a lot of them are really incel type people.
Yes.
When I use that term,
Right.
and they feel like they are just owed women. Like women should
Yes.
just want them because they're men.
Right.
And it's
Well,
like,
we see that sort
Really?
of rhetoric online too. I mean,
Yeah.
beyond talking about these alt-right people who've joined or taken over the Libertarian Party, there's this like cultural thing about women transitioning to men. Mm-hmm. Like what was my process, but it's somehow a loss, as if, you know, there need to be like pretty girls out there for all the men to ogle and to enjoy.
Exactly. Like they think that women exist for them, for their
Yes.
own pleasure and their
Right.
own needs.
Right.
And that's why they don't care about women's rights. They don't care about the rights
Yep.
of individuals.
Right.
They only see women as objects for them to use how they wish. Not as people, not as equals, not as human beings, but as sexual objects for them to use however they want, to have children with, and that's just disgusting.
Yeah, there's even some politicians who are talking about making birth control illegal.
Yeah,
Which is crazy.
I mean, the Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade specifically brought up a case about contraceptives. It specifically brought up the Oberfeld decision, and it specifically brought up the Lawrence decision, which is the anti-sodomy laws that basically banned anti-sodomy laws.
You're talking about Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, Clarence Thomas's opinion.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 3 cases from the Supreme Court, and now conservatives have jumped all in on talking about these things.
Right.
What they found out the hard way, though, is recently in Kansas on the ballot referendum, 80% of people in Kansas are very conservative states said, hell no.
Right, yeah. Actually, when that happened, I was actually in Washington, D.C. at the time, and I was going to dog parks, and I met a very conservative woman, and I actually told her about my project. Sometimes I tell people, just because I'm going to be like an open, you know, trans person, you know, occasionally. And she took it very well. And then the next day when I saw her, she actually wanted to be interviewed for this project because she was so piping mad about the overturn of Roe versus Wade. And she was very, very conservative.
Yeah.
You know, so there are conservative people who don't want the government to come in.
Absolutely.
Speak up more, folks.
Yeah, we need as many people out there as possible to say enough is enough. Like, so you know what I've learned from from this decision, and something that I've been talking about a long time is that we can't trust the government to fix our problems.
Yeah.
And so what do we do, right? What do we do as a queer community? What do we do as marginalized people in general in this environment? What do we do? Well, there's a few things that we can do.
Yeah.
One, we stop trusting the old systems and the old people in power, right? We can't keep electing the same people and expect different results. We can't keep electing the old parties and expect them to be there for us. The Democrats had 50 years to pass legislation to codify abortion.
Yeah.
And they never did it.
Right.
Why? Because it was always there as a fundraising tool, as a little dangler. And they've done that with gay rights for years as well.
It's also a hard fight.
Exactly.
And they often shy away from those hard fights.
Yeah. So they talk about being for it, but they've never actually really put it in.
Right.
Same thing with gay rights and queer rights. The legalization of marriage came from a Supreme Court decision. It did not come from legislation. Back in 2008, between 2008 and 2010, the Democrats had supermajorities in the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They could have easily passed legalization of gay marriage, but they weren't in favor of it.
Yep.
Then at the time, President Obama and Vice President Biden campaigned on not being in favor of gay marriage in 2008. So Democrats have not always...
Too.
Yeah.
She's done that. She's gone back and forth and back and forth.
They're not our friends on these issues, and they pretend to be because they need your vote.
Yeah.
And that's what they care about. So if they think they can cater to you to win their vote, they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
And in fact, Hillary Clinton even said, we need to kind of, I'm just paraphrasing here, we need to drop this trans issue so that we can get people in office.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what she was saying, because she's a pragmatist. When people say that they're pragmatists, oftentimes though they're saying that they are willing to cut out minority interests.
Yeah, they're willing to sacrifice
Yep.
whatever in order to get what they want.
That's right.
As long as it's what they want,
Yeah.
not what anybody else wants.
Who could trust that?
Exactly. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to be the ones in there making decisions. So we need more queer people to run
Sure.
for office.
Sure.
We need to get elected. We need to be in office. The Victory Institute has a map of queer elected officials throughout the United States, and currently there's just over 1,000.
I didn't even know that there were that many.
Only 1,000 when you're talking about boards, you're talking about commissions, you're talking
Sure.
about local elections, state, national. You're talking about 80 to 100,000 different elected positions,
Sure.
and we have 1,000 people maybe.
So 1%.
Not even 1%.
Yeah.
We don't have many. In Massachusetts alone, we don't have many. There are, according to the Victory Institute map, when it comes to trans or non-binary people, there's just about 60. 60 trans or non-binary identifying people on that map.
Yeah.
Elected throughout the United States.
In
Six of them,
arguably the bluest state in the union.
6 of them in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
2 city councilors, one being me, one being another person. We also have a state select board member.
Yeah.
So a town select board member, and then there are 3 people who serve on different types of boards or commissions. So there are currently 6 listed in Massachusetts. So not that many.
I have a question for you about that, actually. I've noticed that I have had some pretty good contact with people in New Hampshire and Maine. Mm-hmm. And they are very libertarian sounding.
Yes.
I'm not going to call them libertarian, but they're very libertarian sounding. And they're queer and they're trans, etc. And I'm wondering, is there a demographic shift in terms of economics away from Massachusetts in a way because of that?
I think a little, but
into other New England states?
I do think, honestly, I think New England is more libertarian than it is liberal. And I think it always has been.
Sure.
People just don't realize it or don't know it. But Massachusetts was always, a front line on social issues and really more fiscally conservative than in other liberal areas. We have numerous times voted against increasing our taxes. We have numerous times on the ballot been given a choice to increase state income taxes and things like that. And the people here have voted against those kinds of things.
And you've also had some pretty good Republican governors here.
Well, yeah. There's that's how they find the balance, really. The legislature is always very heavily Democrat, so the governors tend to lean more Republican. Baker's in office right now. He's considered a good Republican compared to many others. Before that, there was Jane Swift and Bill Weld and a bunch of other people. Massachusetts has kind of found that balance in that. And Massachusetts Republicans are probably moderate Democrats anywhere else.
Yeah. Right.
Typically.
Right. The reason why I'm bringing that up is I'm wondering if the lack of representation here compared to the reputation of the place has to do with an economic factor, right? Because
I think so.
The Boston metro area, like we were just saying earlier, is extremely expensive.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous. If you don't have a tech job, you're not doing well.
Yep. Yeah. Tech or engineering or medical, like high-end medical, pharmaceutical, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. It's really difficult. But, also at the same time, Boston itself set itself up in ways that hurt its own minority population, as many cities do. Boston has this history, even though Massachusetts is a very liberal state by and large, and the Boston metro area is very liberal by and large, Boston is still considered one of the most racist cities in the United States.
And it's really segregated, too.
It is.
I was just passing through the South, even through, New Jersey, and my contact with people of color was orders of magnitude more than here in Massachusetts, definitely.
Yeah. There's definitely, racial tensions in Boston during the 70s and 80s were huge, 60s, 70s, 80s.
And it still comes up, like, at the games.
It's still,
Fenway.
Even, professional sports, a lot of places will say that that Fenway Park in Boston is the most racist sports sports city out there, and it's still a big problem. And the difference is that, liberals in Massachusetts, they want to vote for things that make them feel good, but they're not actually willing to be those personal allies. They just want to donate to the cause or make, those feel good type situations. But they're
not so messy.
Exactly.
Politics is messy.
Exactly. They want to be seen as good people, right? So they want to be seen supporting the homeless, but they don't want homeless people in their neighborhood.
Right.
They
or
want
to do something radical.
They want to be seen donating to the NAACP or donating to Pride, but they don't want the gays and the blacks in their neighborhoods. Right. And that's what you get, especially out in the Boston area. And even out here in Berkshire County, there's not a lot of color out here. It's a very white population. And so in North Adams, we just made history. The last election, our mayor's the first female mayor ever elected. I am the first trans person in the entire county elected. And we had our first black city councilor elected in this last election.
Wow.
So, yeah, big deal.
North Adams is doing a lot.
We are pushing forward, and I'm really honored and grateful to be a part of that change and that push forward and that new...
Well, I mean, like I was saying earlier, you sound kind of perfect. I mean, you're really smart. You have a deep history here, and you know the history here. You obviously care about this place so much.
Yeah.
And it needs a lot of help.
Yeah.
It needs a lot of help from somebody who's going to plan and bring things in and bring people together. I mean, we need more of you. Whether you're trans or not, whether you're queer or not, we need more people like this.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's something that I pride myself on. One of the best compliments that I get from my constituents is that I'm very well reasoned, and when I speak, they feel like I have a really good knowledge of what I'm talking about. Because I take the time to do the research. I won't vote on something without knowing exactly what it does and how it works. And I speak...
Well, people can get on you, too. If you don't know the actual language of something, then they're like,
that too.
But
a lot of people will be, they'll have a general understanding of what it's supposed to do, and they'll support that, and they'll get behind one idea, and they'll use that to defend it. For me, I want to look at it from every perspective. How does this hurt other people? How does this help everybody? What is this actually intended to do? And, I take the time to do the research. I enjoy policies, so, it's kind of a fun thing for me. It's how we make change through policy, so it's something I kind of got into.
How about parliamentary, how do you even say
parliamentary procedure?
Yeah. That's the worst.
Robert's rules can go to hell.
Yeah, that's the worst.
I hate Robert's rules. And it's so easily weaponized by parliamentarians who know it inside and out.
I heard that was part of how the Mises took over.
Yes.
Because they have somebody with them who is just an expert parliamentarian. Now, she's also a bigot. She's definitely a bigot.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe she's a savant. Maybe that's all she knows. I can't quite tell what else she knows because she seems a little bit ignorant on everything else.
Yeah, pretty much.
But apparently she's an expert parliamentarian. So.
Well, she's supposedly one, but even that she screws up sometimes.
Okay, all right.
But,
But I have seen her weaponize it.
She does know how to weaponize it for sure. And a lot of people will go along with her because she makes herself look like and sound like an authority on it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the thing too. If you make yourself look like and sound like an authority, sometimes the loudest, and this is really important to remember, the loudest person in the room isn't always correct.
Yeah.
Just because they're loud and out there.
Sometimes the majority isn't correct either.
Exactly. And just because a bunch of people get on them and join their side and say, we're right, and they're the loudest people in the room, being loud doesn't make you correct unless you intimidate everybody away, and that's their tactic.
Yeah.
They'll be incorrect, but they'll get as many people in the room to quiet everybody else so nobody else wants to deal with it. And they'll do it over and over and over again to the point where people get sick of it, and they're like, I'm not even dealing with it.
Yeah, I watched the convention, and I was just like, what is this?
It was wild. It was depressing. I watched a little bit of it. It was the death of what I believed in, and all the work that I put in over the past 4
Yeah,
years.
it must be terrible because I'm not even involved, and I felt sad about it. But if you've devoted several years of your life to it, I mean, it must be just devastating.
It was really hard, but I also came to the realization leaving beforehand, because I did
Yeah.
leave a little bit beforehand.
Yeah. But you could
that-
see it coming.
I saw it coming. I knew it was coming. I put out the when I did the expulsion measure. That was me sending out the flare signals to everybody else that this can happen here in Massachusetts. It's going to happen in your states
Yes.
too. So to start doing something now. And I ended up resigning after I pulled that measure off,
Yeah.
mainly for personal reasons. I had knee surgery and I needed time to recover. And
Yeah.
really didn't have time to deal with everything else afterwards. And I also, by resigning, I could take the fall for it and take the pressure off the rest of the board so they could continue to function until their next convention. So it was kind of, a dual reasoning there.
So, what do you
But-
think of as the role of OutRight USA right now? By the way,
Yeah, so
why OutRight? By the way,
OutRight was always the name of the organization.
Okay.
It's kind
because
of...
that might confuse some people with right being in.
Yeah, well, outright, like living outright,
Okay.
being out, right?
Sure.
So, it's about being out and being who you are, and it's about, when you say the word outright, you're talking about being out there,
Yeah.
right? And putting yourself out there and being present, kind of, is what I think of outright. And in kind of the direction we want to take the organization in now is to be more of an educational and policy focused,
Sure.
and focus on ideas and education around issues. We want to be able to talk about transitioning, for example, and bring in medical experts and actually talk about what it really means to go through this process, what hormones really do to the body, what puberty blockers do and don't do. Like,
Yeah.
really give people
That's
education around
That's
things.
a really contentious issue right
It
now.
is, but talking about it, talking about the perceived advantages in sports and competitions from somebody who's transitioned,
Right.
all of those types of things. So it's really important that we educate people on all kinds of issues, but then we also want to be involved in pushing policy, the good policy that is not government enforced, but really, policy that restricts government from doing things that hurt us.
Yeah. Okay, we took a little break because my dog, he needed a little break there. So I was wondering if we could move on to like some future stuff. You were talking about, getting more queer and trans people in office, but as we can see, some of these supposedly new movements that are political out there are pretty Republican. You describe them as being moderate. I have another view of them. They may sound moderate, but I think in intention, I don't think they're moderate.
Fair.
Yeah, that's my take on it.
I haven't deep dived, but I've only seen a little. From what I've seen, it's
Yeah.
more moderate, but I could see where
Yeah.
it could be more conservative as well.
Yeah, well, what I think they're doing is they're rebranding conservatism as being centrist.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm super not into that. Anyway, I don't think we have a centrist party here, except for the Democrats. If we had a more leftist party out there, I think that would actually be better. We'd have more robust political discussions, just like you were talking about earlier about having different points of view. Like, for instance, if the Greens were more popular here, and if they were less of a one-issue sort of party, that might be healthier for us. So now I'm not promoting the Greens. I know very little about them. In fact, some of their leadership has been transphobic.
Yes.
That keeps popping up all over the place.
Yeah, you're going to find transphobia in any political party and
Yeah.
probably any political organization out there. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're just going to run into it everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like it's pretty accepted. Like, people are using language like common sense and reasonableness at the same time that they're being bigoted.
Yeah.
Bigotry is not reasonable. Anyway, so back to like maybe being politically active, and people can be politically active independently, like
Yes.
I am. I often do my own sort of projects. But if people want to get involved in terms of parties as well as being candidates, what
Yeah.
can they do?
Yeah, so my campaign, local elections are nonpartisan here.
Okay.
So there is no party line, although it was very clear that I was libertarian
that makes
publicly
sense.
because I was the chair of the state party. So it wasn't something that I didn't run on being a libertarian, but it was, people knew I was the chair of the state party. So
So
it wasn't something I hid either.
city councils, you don't have to
Local,
necessarily
yeah,
be
get involved
partisan.
locally.
Okay.
Start locally. City council, school board, even boards and commissions, school
Okay.
boards, zoning boards, planning boards. Local government affects your life so much more than Washington ever
Right.
will.
There's also different kinds of like commissioners, like ag, that
Yep,
sort of thing.
agricultural, water districts,
soil
soil.
and conservation. Right.
Exactly, soil conservation, your zoning boards, your planning boards,
Right.
your school committees. Right now, school committees are a really hot topic, and,
Okay, yeah.
right-wing people are trying to take them over,
Right.
so they can, ban trans people from going to school and things of that nature.
Right. Ban books about
Ban
that
books.
mention LGBT people in any way.
Or any kind of social justice in
Yep.
general.
Yep. Racism.
Yep.
History of slavery in this country, etc.
Yeah. So there's a lot you can do to be involved. Get involved in local organizations and just be out there. One of the things that's really important is that there are a lot of allies to our movement and to our culture, but allies can't be our voices.
Yeah.
We have to be the voice, and our allies need to help amplify our voices.
Right.
Allies should not be the voice out there championing for us. We need to do that ourselves.
Yeah. Allies often have more money and more influence.
Yes.
Which is how they can be helpful
Allies
to
can-
people with less of that.
Absolutely. Allies can give us the connections we need to get in the room.
Yeah. And money.
But we need to be able to get in the room.
Yeah.
We need to be in the room talking about our experience and sharing that.
Right.
But when talking about politics, just be involved. Be involved in what's going on. Stay current. Vote. Make sure you go out and vote. Make sure you understand the issues that are being presented, and make sure you go to your your town hall meetings or your
Yes.
city council meetings and express your ideas.
Yeah.
Go there and be part of the process.
Yeah.
That is so very important. When I started politically, I ran for the first time in 2017 and I lost. And
And that's common.
it is common.
That's
And
common for you to
I
lose.
honestly didn't do a lot of campaigning, but I participated in some forums and did very well in the forums. And I knew that was me getting my name out there as somebody potentially to be serious in the future. And what that led to was me serving, being offered to serve on the Human Services Commission here in North Adams. So it led to something else, and it gave me an opportunity. And then from there, I also joined the Berkshire Stonewall Community Coalition, which is a nonprofit LGBTQ organization here in the Berkshires. It's been around since the 90s. So I joined the board of directors, and I'm currently the president of the board.
Oh my God, you're everywhere.
I've moved my way up and through things. And when it comes to anything basically LGBTQ in this county, I'm one of the primary voices and people involved out here in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. And I position myself that way because being involved, even if you're not involved directly politically, but being involved in what's happening is the way to get involved in politics.
Yeah.
If you give yourself an opportunity to serve on these smaller roles and in these other organizations, you put yourself in the community, you're seen doing the work, you're seen making connections with people, you get to meet new people, you get to work with them, and that kind of builds a profile so that when
That's
you
right.
run for office,
People can see
will
it.
know you and they've seen the results of your work.
Right.
They know when you're talking about it, you actually have something to back it up.
That's right.
You've done something.
That's right.
And that can go a long way into actually getting elected.
Especially
And so-
too if you're kind of diverse in what you've been doing. That means
Exactly.
you can come in, you can learn something, you can learn those issues, you can find some solutions, and then you move it on to something else, and you can jump in and learn that too.
Exactly. So it's really about progressing and building on it.
Yeah.
The relationships in your community are where you start when
Right.
you're building a political anything. If you want to be involved in politics, you have to make the connections, you have to be involved, and you have to be seen getting results.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And it's also vulnerable too.
Yeah.
I mean, you could lose.
You could.
You could be experiencing.
And you will likely lose your first election. Let me just put it out there.
And you're likely to experience some bigotry, and some of that can be harsh. Some of it can be the softer kind. Sometimes the softer kind can be more painful.
Yeah.
It sinks in more.
Yeah, I've gotten death threats, and I've gotten people misgendering me.
Yeah.
And honestly, the misgendering me bothers me a little bit more because it's personal.
And it can happen like on a daily basis, some of that stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's this weird, we unfortunately we have to fight to get the recognition and rights we deserve. We're at that point where we shouldn't have to. It should automatically come to us. But if we don't fight for it, we're going to lose more of it than we're ever going to be able to keep or gain.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now in this country and even globally in many places.
I think rights have to always be fought for.
Absolutely.
In every instance, even if it seems like a small thing, you still have to fight for it.
Yeah. Yeah. If it means something to you, you have to be willing to fight for it and put yourself out there and speak to it. Words are so powerful.
Yeah.
And silence can be powerful, but if you're silent on a right, then you're essentially giving consent for it to be taken away.
Yeah. And, even in very red places, you can still do this. Like, I was in Fairbanks, Alaska, and Alaska's quite red, and especially Fairbanks. And queer people and trans people would show up at the school board meetings and speak with their hearts.
Yeah.
About issues. And they were visible, they were being recorded, they were being noted by some rather extreme bigots up there, but they did it anyway.
Yeah. Being visible is really important. Like, just by being out there and putting yourself out there and being visible, other people now feel like they can too. Yeah. Other people who might not have known there are other people like them out there now know that there's somebody else.
That's right.
They're not alone.
And it shows that you're not weak, because I think some of these people think that we're weak.
Yeah.
It's like, no, none of us are weak.
Here in North Adams, we had our second ever Pride celebration right here in this courtyard, actually. And it was this year, and it was the same day of the Dobbs decision.
Okay.
Overturning Roe versus Wade.
Great.
And in that day, I was really emotional. I was having a hard time with my thoughts, and I was asked to speak, so I wasn't sure what to say.
Yeah.
And it really took my mind a while to get from angry to productive in what I wanted to say, and not just, drop a bunch of F-bombs and that's, can't do that. Yeah. But I really wanted to. And it was a really difficult day, but coming here and seeing young people especially happy, safe, content, celebrating, being who they are, that is the most amazing and most important thing that you can do, is live authentically and be out there, being visible, just being seen is so beautiful and important. And so speaking to the issues, it was really understanding, like, okay, this just happened, but we have a big fight ahead, and we have a lot of work to do. But in the moment, we're here, and this is the best thing that we can do, is just to be visible and be present.
Right, and to be in community as well, and supporting each other.
Exactly.
Because trans people, we're for trans rights in general. There are some trans people who are anti-trans, which is strange, but it is out there, because they have a very narrow definition of what being trans is about. There are some gay people who go against gay and queer rights and trans rights. I'm not going to get too far into them, but there are groups like that. But people who are for these rights are also for other things having to do with justice, right? We can also support other issues, other communities. In fact, since we have had to learn how to survive so well, I feel like we're really equipped to help people with their grief around issues.
Yeah.
Right? So I love it that you spoke on that day, because you probably helped a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I wasn't the only one to speak, luckily, so it wasn't just me. But,
Right.
I had a responsibility to do that as a leader in this
Right.
community.
Right.
It took a lot of energy for me to find what I needed to say.
I bet.
But what it comes down to, that decision really laid out my purpose moving forward and what I'm going to do.
Okay, and
And so
Yes.
my goal is this. It's probably going to take about 30 years to accomplish, is
Okay.
my thought process. But I don't trust laws and I don't trust legislation alone. But I do trust the Constitution itself.
okay.
So for me,
Why do you trust the Constitution?
because the Constitution is rules against the government, not
Okay.
rules against the people.
Excellent.
The Constitution is there not to tell people what to do, but tell the government what they can't do to hurt people.
That's right.
The Constitution is our rules for them,
Yeah.
whereas the U.S. Code of Laws is their rules for us.
Right.
And that's why the Constitution is so important. And I think we need to do two really important things with the Constitution.
Okay.
The first is that the Civil Rights Act needs to be constitutionalized. It can't just be law or legislation. It needs to be in the Constitution. It needs to restrict government from discriminating against people.
Okay.
That is really important.
What do you think about the Equality Act?
I don't think the Equality Act does enough. I don't think it's strong enough. And I think it's more of a tokenized symbol than it really is a
More
symbol.
of a feel-good thing.
Exactly, and it really doesn't help trans people
Yeah.
either. It can be used again the way it's written. It can be weaponized against the trans
Okay.
community.
In what
So-
way? I don't know specifically what you're
Because
talking
it's
about.
the Equality Act is mainly around marriage equality, but
Okay.
also around women's rights.
Okay.
And there are TERFs who will use that
Right.
to fight back against
Right.
the trans community,
Right.
saying they're not real women and blah blah blah.
Right.
So we really need to have our Constitution be a rule book that the government cannot discriminate against its people or its constituents or the people. Constitution says we the people of the United States. That's us. We're the people. And we need the Constitution to defend us. And then the second amendment that I think we need to have is a constitutional amendment guaranteeing bodily autonomy for
Yes.
all human beings.
Yes.
You own yourself. The government does not
Yes.
own you. Nobody else owns you.
Yeah.
And you alone, as long as you mentally have the capacity to do so, have the right to make your own choices in life about what you put in or take out of your body.
Yeah.
And no government should ever make rules to stop you from doing so. It's
Yeah.
not the government's place. I don't trust legislatures. I don't trust boards of people telling me what I should and shouldn't do with my body.
Yeah, it's interesting that that would take care of so many problems.
So many.
I mean, our huge prison population that is just ridiculous.
Yep.
And all the money that goes towards that too, to basically torture people.
Yep.
It would, it would just solve a lot. What else do you think it would help besides that?
It can help with so many things. You're talking about transitioning. You're talking about surgery. You're talking
Yeah.
about abortion. You're talking about contraceptives. You're talking about what you eat or drink and consume.
Yeah.
Products you consume. Maybe there's restricted access on drugs like there still are, but they shouldn't be completely marijuana. Being able to consume marijuana.
Yeah.
Everybody should have the right to do that if they choose to.
I've noticed a little sort of a resurgence of just say no kind of propaganda around opioids.
Yeah.
And
There's
what's happening though is that people who really need opioids are not getting them.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
people in chronic pain, people who even have surgery are being denied these medications, and it's just another form of drug control.
Yeah.
It
It's
doesn't
just,
work.
It's just another form of putting everybody in one box
Yes.
and controlling them
Yeah.
based on this preconceived conception. It's just a way of causing more harm to people without taking into account an individual's experience. And we are all individuals. While there are many of us who share a lot of ideas or even community, we're still unique individuals who have our own lives and our own issues and our own decisions to make.
Speaking of that, have you ever had any, I just always use this word, which I wish I could come up with a different word, but pushback from other queer, trans people, the LGBT community about your own politics?
Some. But I'm not really like, most of the pushback comes with the party stuff,
Okay.
It's more of, well, if you vote for somebody that's, if you vote for a third party instead of voting for Biden,
Yes.
then you're basically helping Trump. And it's like, well, no, I'm not voting for someone I don't believe in. I will not sacrifice my integrity to vote for someone who doesn't share my values and beliefs.
Honestly, though, I don't know. I don't even know if Biden's going to run. He doesn't seem like he's in good health.
I don't even know how Biden ran the first this past time.
I don't know either.
As Biden is, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even want to think about 2024. It's going to be a mess.
It's a nightmare.
I'm hoping that DeSantis and Trump just destroy each other.
Yeah.
And that it becomes a bloodbath there, and it splits the factions. And
I think DeSantis is even more dangerous than Trump, though, because
he is.
He's sophisticated, he's good looking, he's young, and he is very successful at pushing authoritarian policies while looking like he's a savior.
Yeah, like recently he took federal ARPA funds and gave out a stimulus to people in Florida, like a $250 stimulus, and that's going to help working people and that's going to help families. But that's not the state's money. He took the federal government's money that he got from the federal government while claiming to be a conservative and fiscally conservative, and he's giving it away to people who need it. Yeah, they do need it, but he's giving it away to people to get their support, and they're going to ignore some of the other issues because he gave them money. Right.
And he's limited free speech. He's banned books. He's banned free association. He's banned protesting in certain places. I mean, this guy's bad news.
Yeah.
Literally for everyone, this guy's bad news.
Yeah, this guy is this guy is McCarthy 2.0.
Yeah, basically.
He is.
Speaking of that, the LP put out a message about that yesterday.
Oh God.
Did you see that?
I don't follow the LP at all anymore.
Well, I don't either, but I just happened to see it. They put out a message, something about somebody who's actually been banned from Twitter. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's been permanently banned from Twitter, saying that McCarthy didn't go far enough. And there are some right-leaning libertarians who are defending that because they're just so anti-communist that they can't get over themselves.
Yep.
And I mean, communism is not a threat in this country. It really isn't. The ideas are bad, but what they're condoning there is basically threats, harassment, and violence against people who have those ideas.
Yeah, or people who have different ideas.
Yeah, or have different ideas at all, right? Or, maybe they're not even communists. I mean, maybe they're just kind of leftist, or maybe they're, Jewish, for instance.
Or maybe they just don't agree with the person behind it. And
that's right. Maybe they're not far right. Yeah, it becomes like a witch hunt is what it is. And
exactly.
We have a history of that in this country, and let's stop doing that,
Yeah.
It's very dangerous kind of messaging, and but I've seen some libertarians actually, defending it. That's how I came up with that joke about the Austrian economics in the bio, because it's always these folks.
Yep. People have the right to say whatever they want, but there's also consequences for speech.
Yes. Especially from a party.
And the First Amendment says the government can't limit your speech, but it doesn't say anything about other people having to listen to your BS.
Right.
Freedom of association means that when you spout your BS, I can walk away and I don't have to listen and I don't have to engage and I don't have to be welcome or part of it. And if you're doing something that hurts me or hurts my business, then I can tell you to go take a hike.
That's right.
And
other people can boycott and protest and tell you what an asshole
exactly. You are. And that's exactly why the system works. And so when people claim freedom of speech to be terrible people, sure, they can say whatever they want, but that doesn't mean they don't have consequences.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that that other private companies have to platform them or even give them the ability to do that. They can do it on their own.
Yeah. So these right-leaning libertarians are saying that anybody who is basically against this kind of messaging is, of course, a communist.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's disgusting, it's terrible, and it has no place in civilized society.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to actually help anybody.
Yeah.
It's useless, it's childish.
And you know what? I want to hear what people who espouse communism have to say. There might be some good ideas in there. There might be some bad ones. But let's talk about it.
Yeah.
We're supposedly a free society, so let's talk about these ideas. And these are just ideas.
And I am fairly against communism.
Sure, I am
However,
too.
I am very in favor of mutualism.
Yeah.
So if you create your own community.
Which is voluntary.
Voluntary.
Yes.
That's the key word. If you want to voluntarily have a co-op or voluntarily have a mutual neighborhood or community, I am 100% for you to do that.
Yeah.
But don't force people to be a part of one. And that's the biggest.
I hope this doesn't sound condescending, because I really appreciate all people, young people, older people. I mean, older people can have bad ideas. They can also have good ideas. Younger people can have bad ideas. They can also have good ideas. But I noticed that younger people and some queer people are, like I was saying earlier, turning towards more socialism and communism and that sort of thing. And I think that's because those groups are actually talking about LGBT issues and some justice issues in a good way.
Yes.
In a way that is actually about justice.
And I think from their perspective, socialist and communist ideas work when they're not done by government, when they're done by mutualism.
Right.
So by mutualism, they
because
sound
people
great.
do want their own freedom.
Yes.
They do.
Yes. But when you give the power to lawmakers to make those decisions and force people to be a part of it, that's where I have an issue, and that's where I'm like, no, nobody should have to participate in something they don't want to participate in.
Right, and as we've been saying, the government can flip.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, you have somebody much more authoritarian.
Yeah, and
you no longer have AOC. You have somebody that is going to talk maybe about justice issues, but then they hurt other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you have somebody like DeSantis or Cronin from Texas, and you have the Handmaid's Tale all over again.
Right. They talk about freedom and liberty, but what they do is the opposite.
Yeah, what they talk about is freedom and liberty for people like them.
Yeah, that's right.
And everybody else bowing to their commands.
That's right. Actually, I kind of get tired of the Democrats and the Republicans all talking about liberty. Who's going to talk about liberty now that there's no more Libertarian Party?
Well, I think people are still going to talk about it, and I think the future of the word liberty and the word the movement still exists. There's still a liberty movement, right? And one of the biggest lessons that I learned and why I was able to walk away from the party and it hurt a lot to see what happened, but I realized that while I was there, the Libertarian Party felt like my home. But it wasn't the party that was my home. It was the people who supported me and the people who believed in the same principles and ideas that I did.
Yeah.
That's where my home is.
Yeah.
It's with the people, not the party. And those people still support me, and they still believe in the same ideas that I do. And as long as they do, and as long as we support each other, we can still fight and work for the world we want to see, a world where people are truly free to make their own decisions and live their own lives and not be held hostage by a system designed to hurt them. And as long as more people are willing to step up and jump in and participate and believe in that and speak up and speak out and fight for it, we'll continue to grow. And we don't need a party to do that.
Right.
We just need to support each other and love each other and push the message.
Yeah, and people could do this independently, as we've said. They can also reform old organizations, like you're reforming OutRight USA from the OutRight Libertarians. Now it took Libertarian out of the name, and maybe it'll have. I don't know if you guys have more of a different focus or different actions that you're going to be taking.
Yeah.
But also, everyone out there, you have the power to get together with other people in your community, no matter where you live, even in, Central Alaska, where I was, there were people getting together and talking about issues, supporting each other. Sometimes that involves religious communities as well that are actually pro-social and not trying to control other people. There's many examples of that. Unitarians are often very good.
Yep.
There are, within every religious denomination, there's some schisms. There's more conservative and controlling. There's more liberal and forgiving. You can find those people everywhere. So this is a time of transition, I feel like. We're transitioning as a culture in a way. It's a bad moment, but it's also an opportunity.
Yeah.
Where we can make things that are more robust. We can codify things that need to be codified. We can get things into the Constitution that are lacking.
Yes.
That we actually need protection from.
Yeah. The Constitution that was written said all men are created equal, while making some people 3/5 of a person and not giving rights to others.
Right.
So when they tell you, well, back then that was the language. When they said all men, they really meant all people. No, they didn't. And we need to change that.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts, the oldest living constitution in the world, which was the basis of the national constitution, we changed the language to say that all human beings, that all people are equal.
Right.
There's no reason why we can't do the same to
and
the
our
U.S.
Constitution
Constitution.
has been amended, and it's been amended appropriately. It takes a lot of effort to do that, and that it should take a lot of effort. It shouldn't be easy.
Yep.
It should not be easy at all, because we see that fickleness is a problem. When we flip back and forth, we can't be doing that with our Constitution.
Agreed.
But we need a groundswell. We need a groundswell to make it a more robust document than it even is. So.
Absolutely. And even Thomas Jefferson, one of the founders, had said Constitution should be rewritten every 17 years.
Yeah.
That the people who have died years before shouldn't be governing people from the grave.
Right.
People who have died should not be telling people who are alive how to live their lives or what they should be doing, because societies change and evolve.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
And our founding fathers knew that, but we've become so attached to that tradition and that history that we're so afraid to make those changes.
Yeah.
Well, now it's time.
Yeah, and it's respectful of that tradition
Yes.
because they were revolutionaries.
Exactly.
It's respectful of change.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anyway, I think that's a good point to end. I
Agreed.
noticed you've been checking your watch there a little bit, and this has gone a little bit long, but we both have a lot to say.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed this, and I'm so impressed with you. And
Thank you.
Not to say that being a councilwoman is a lower position, but I can certainly see you doing a higher job than that. I mean,
you.
obviously you're taking great care of this community. If you have good plans for it, but who knows? I have more plans for you. I'm nobody,
Well,
but you seem like you're gonna seek a higher office. I have a feeling about that.
I have my goals, and
Yeah.
if running for higher office helps me with that purpose, my purpose is that 30-year plan to get the constitutional changes.
Right.
I will take avenues to do that, and we'll see what the future holds. But right now, this is my home, and I have work to do here, and I have people to take care of here.
And this place does need a lot of help.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're the person to do it.
I'm honored to have the ability to serve.
Yeah. And it sounds like the community wants it too. It's been voting people into office who can maybe bring some change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. North Adams.
Yes.
Rural Western Massachusetts.
The
Awesome.
smallest city in Massachusetts.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I told you during when we were messaging back and forth, I was surprised how small it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I expected it to be a little bit bigger, but it's very charming and small.
It is. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. I hope this didn't take up too much of your day.
No, it's been great.
Pretty long.
It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for being so sweet to my dog.
Oh, of course.
He's been crawling on the table even.
It's very cute.
Yeah, he's a good boy. Anyway,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
On to the next one. On to the next one. All right.